One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Along with Trey Reeves and Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Glad to have you for week 9. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. We have the coaching carousel scorching once again this week. Big names leaving, power vacancies open. We'll talk about Billy Napier out at Florida. Jay Norvell out at Colorado State as well. I think there could be a looming monster, really, in Fort Collins with the right person there. We've got big games in the SEC. We've got games to talk about around the country as well in the Big 12. And a little buy or sell coming to Saturday's storylines. All of this and more right here on the Week 9 preview. But fellas, Week 8... fantastic. We talked about it being 8 later Saturday. It delivered this week. Maybe some of the bigger matchups kind of around this week, but boy, this is a slate that I feel like if you're not careful, we'll talk about our team in just a second. This is where the thread can get pulled, and you've seen seasons come off the rails before. A bad end to October can oftentimes spell disaster in November, and so while this may seem like a relatively normal week, some benign conference games on the slate, how many times have we seen a team step on the landmine and blow up what could have otherwise been something special?
Yeah, this is a just survive in advance Saturday for my liking. Just no matter where you are in the playoff picture, no matter where you are in trying to get to a bowl game, no matter where you are in just trying to hit your Vegas over, survive in advance. Figure out a way to win by 1 point this week, move on, and let's get the heck to November before anything gets even crazier.
Yeah, for me, the big deal is just I've been comparing this to like a par 5 in golf, right? We're just like, hey, you hit the nice tee shot, you're up near the green now after your second. And this is where my coach would always tell me in high school, this is where you make your money, right? It's time to get on the green, get up and down, and it's the whole drive for show, putt for dough. We're getting to the end of the season, and it's time to dial in those wedges, make sure you can hit one on the green pretty close so you can finish. And it's one of those quiet, sneaky Saturdays where like the slate's a little okay, and it's not necessarily all the big matchups we've been seeing, but someone's going to slip up and ruin a season this week.
Yeah, boy, the knees are knocking over those 3 to 6 footers. I feel like whether you're at home or on the road, I just don't know that there's many easy games when you look at some of the bigger conferences, right? Just every week you could slip up, and boy, we've seen that. There's some big lines this week. We'll talk about those in just a little bit. This episode, all of our episodes, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Thank you to them for sponsoring our seasonal content this year. You can use our code 3TechPod. Play just $5, get $100 in bonus funds instantly. We've been playing college football. You can play your lineups with the MLB playoffs going on right now. Game 7 of the ALCS is being played right now. So as this comes out, we'll be talking about the World Series. Basketball is coming back. Stick puck's back. You've got the NFL. If you want to bet the London games, play the London slate. You can do whatever you want. $5 get you $100 in bonus funds with our code 3TechPod. Also, shout out to the new Jimmies and Joes because, boy, we just have those continuing to load up every single week, whether it be on YouTube, the podcast side. Glad to have you with us. If this is the first time that you're listening to us on the podcast side, had a couple thousand of you discover us over the weekend over on YouTube. So thrilled to have you guys in the boat as well. But gentlemen, with that, let's get into the first item of business. Coaching carousel is a spinning once again. And Trey, let's start with you here. Billy Napier out at Florida. His record kind of speaks for himself. 22-23 in 4 seasons. I'll let you get to the candidates that are kind of at the top of the list to replace him. But one interesting report that I saw, and not verified, put out by a Florida fan site, so who knows if it's true, but I do think it kind of underlines the Napier coaching experience. Billy was kind of a poor man's Steve Sarkisian when he was brought over from Louisiana, right? Supposed to be this offensive guy, loved calling the plays, had pride in the way that he built an offense. Last year, the offense was absolutely terrible. Graham Mertz had it, got hurt, turned it over to a young DJ Lagway, but they figured it out down the stretch. They finished the season on a 4-game winning streak, and it felt like all was right in the world. The boosters reportedly cornered Napier in the offseason and said, Billy, good job. You saved the season. Hire an offensive coordinator. And Napier said no. And the boosters, the powers that be, said, okay, if you will not change, you have to go 9-3 this year. You have to show improvement or you're going to get fired. And, there were the leaks that he was reportedly fired already, pre-fired, as I saw a lot of people putting out the office memes. Before the Mississippi State win, they do beat the Bulldogs at home, and the next morning Napier is let go anyway. So a lot of backstory, a lot of buildup. Take from that what you will. But Trey, what do you make of the whole Napier firing situation?
He's at a school where the results just weren't acceptable, and they've gone through a lot of coaches since Urban Meyer walked out the door and had his health issues almost 15 years ago, over 15 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
And it just, Florida has not been able to find the guy to bring them back to the level that they feel like they should be at. They feel like they should be what they were in 2007 to 2008 every single year, right? They're competing for the national title, right there at the top of the SEC. They have the access to talent. They have the resources as a program. They feel like they should be right there. And none of the guys since Urban Meyer have been able to get them there consistently. You see the ceiling with every single one of those guys. You saw it with Billy Napier at the end of last year, right? You saw it with some of the recruiting that he was doing. But none of them have been able to consistently build like Urban Meyer, like Steve Spurrier, if you want to go back to the 90s, right? They just haven't had that consistency. And that was ultimately their downfall. And as you look down the list of candidates, and we can get into that now, I guess, but I don't know who that guy is that's a slam dunk right now. I think you can upgrade from Billy Napier. Absolutely. I think
That's
from
not
the
hard.
day that he was hired, the resume was kind of lacking, right? You had a lot of good experience as a position coach, the head coaching experience, good success at Louisiana, but the Sunbelt Billy moniker was very well deserved because that's all he had to hang his hat on as a head coach. So you look up and down the list, you can get better than Billy Napier, but can you get to the elite level consistently that you had? I just don't see that. Short of pulling somebody magical out of retirement, like convincing Nick Saban or something like that, which if you look at the betting odds, he is listed. You have the names like Nick Saban, you have the names like Urban Meyer, but you're probably looking at your pipe dream candidate being Lane Kiffin, who has not gotten over the hump at Ole Miss. You give him the resources at Florida, maybe. You also listed James Franklin. Dude made a living beating bottom feeders and losing to elite teams. And I think that James Franklin doing what he did at Penn State would be 7-5 or 8-4 in the SEC, quite frankly. And then your pick, I'll let you get into this. A guy like Eli Drinkwitz has done awesome at Missouri with the limitations that program has compared to their peers. But could he handle the spotlight of the Florida job? That's just such an unknown.
Yeah, and the only reason I put Drink in there, and I've actually started to see him thrown around a little bit more. I think maybe On Threes guys were talking about him earlier today as a candidate. Drink has created his own lane. I put a comment on a major SEC account that basically was trying to clown Eli for celebrating the win at Auburn because, quote, Nick Saban would have never done that. And I just said, man, if your standard is Nick Saban, it's the greatest of all time. Like you're going to be disappointed 10 times out of 10. And when you're talking about a program like Missouri that has had some really nice highs a couple years ago in the SEC, but really hasn't done much since, you've got to create your own lane. And for me, I'm uninspired by the candidates listed for Florida. One, because I don't think Lane Kiffin would go to Florida, quite honestly. I don't know that right now Florida is much of an upgrade over what he's got going on at Ole Miss. But you need somebody that's got an identity, something that they own and they do better than almost anybody else, at least available in the country. And I think Drinkwitz is maybe the closest thing to doing that. He's unique. He relates to players. He's created a good environment at Missouri. He's obviously built a good defense, which I think Florida would love to hang their hat on, an elite defense and a good enough offense. And that's kind of what Missouri has. They've got some fun skill position players. But those are just kind of my unfiltered thoughts. Garrett, you were kind of reacting to Lane Kiffin there at Florida, how would you think Lane would figure out at Florida? Would he even be interested in going to Gainesville?
It's a lot of behind the scenes that I don't think that any of us really have the answers to right now. There might be some, beat guys who can break some of this on either side of it. But for me, Lane Kiffin is your slam dunk if it can happen, right? Like we were talking about, who's the slam dunk guy? You get to start, marketing it as, Kiffin versus Kirby for that big game. And you can start to have a guy who can come in there and give you a little bit more of an identity. And honestly, like as well as he's done in the transfer portal, convincing guys to come to Ole Miss, it'd be a lot easier, I think, to be able to sell Florida than Ole Miss to the average, portal transfer guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of possibilities for him to do really well if he gets there. The problem is we don't know how good his bread is buttered with Ole Miss right now. And I think there have been comments about the fans and comments about sort of like support for them. And, he's had his occasional thing here and there. He feels like the perfect fit at Florida to me, where he can just kind of be like, the villain, so to speak, and it's okay. Because it sort of feels like Florida's okay with that as long as you're winning. I don't know what the situation would be for him at Florida as opposed to, here at Ole Miss where he has it right now. So for me, man, I would do everything I possibly can to, butter the bread if you're Florida and find a way to, get him to swing on over. It's going to be a fight. I think that's the thing, is it's going to be a fight to keep him. I'm not necessarily saying that he will leave Ole Miss, just for Florida. There's maybe like, a couple of other jobs that if they were to come calling, he could go for that one as well. But right now, I think that would be my number one. And then there'd be a big gap if I'm the Florida Gators. It's just too good. And the thing too is it's going to be almost impossible for him to be a downgrade because the schedule next year is so much easier. You almost set Billy Napier up to fail with the schedule you gave him the last couple of years. And I mean, it's one of the hardest schedules I've seen. You had to repeat it, but just flip the home and roads. I don't feel, like, Billy Napier maybe got the fairest shake the last couple of years, but it's at the same time, you do have to win more games than what he ended up doing. So yeah, if it's me, go balls to the wall for Kiffin, and hopefully he can start to kind of build some momentum there and Florida.
Well, and I think to your point, like, it was a brutal schedule and we had no expectations for him last year, and he overachieved from what the nation was saying that Florida was going to do. But I think the lack of an identity for that Florida Gators team, it was a good defense, not a great defense. The offense, honestly, like, could you tell me what the bread and butter of the Florida offense was? Because I don't even think DJ Lagway could tell me what that was. There were clips when they were losing to Texas A&M of him saying on the sideline, "Dude, what are we calling?" Like, it just felt like Napier was just truly had the coach's suggestion screen up in one corner, and he was just scrolling like, "All right, we'll play this one. Okay, we'll do this one." So Florida needs an identity. Kiffin would give them that. I think Drinkowitz would as well. Fascinating to see who ends up in the swamp come this offseason. I mentioned Jay Norvell out at Colorado State. Don't have to spend any time on that. But I think if Colorado State can get the right guy in power there, I think they should build a monster there at the G5 level. Fort Collins is a cool place to be. They've got some money. They've got nice facilities. Do the Rams. So I just think that should be a better job and with better results than what Jay Norvell was getting.
I was going to say, my only comment on this one is back in my EA college football dynasty in that first year in 25, I'm just saying Coach Turney never would have let this happen, okay? I'm just saying. It can win for sure. They can win plenty of conference championships there at Colorado State.
Higher standards for sure in Fort Collins. It's been done before. Why can't we do it again? Somehow still employed, gentlemen. Mike Norvell at Florida State, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, and then we've got Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, which, again, I keep saying this, I'm a broken record. The fact that man is still employed at Wisconsin is a crying shame.
And it looks like they're committing to him. At least, did y'all see the statement the AD put out today? It's a statement of confidence, so take that for what it's worth. But this one was worded differently. Like it felt like they were taking extra steps of saying, like, we are not setting him up for success, and we are going to try to set him up for success in a better way.
Basically blaming it on money, right? Saying that, hey, we need to spend more on the program. Yeah, Wisconsin, I think, is broke. I don't think that they've had the funds to attack the portal to spin the way that their Big Ten counterparts are. I don't know how you have one of the worst starts in program history and you get shut out back-to-back times for the first time since the 70s. and you convince anybody that you believe in this guy. Luke Fickell has done a terrible job at Wisconsin. He has never established an offensive identity. None of the success from Cincinnati is carried over. If Wisconsin wants to be a serious program, they'll move on from him. And if they don't, then, I mean, he can coach there as long as he wants, but he's not going to win in Camp Randall. FSU also committed to Mike Norvell, with the asterisk being that it's for the season. A, quote, comprehensive program review is coming this offseason, end quote. I tweeted out the Jimbo Fisher Christmas tree picture as a translation for what that means. Norvell will be gone at the end of this season. They're, I think, trying to keep everybody in and on the boat as long as they can, but they're buying time. Norvell has lost now 9 straight. No, actually, I think it's 11 straight, right? Because the loss to Virginia was his 8th or 9th straight conference loss. From Chris Vanini, paints the picture beautifully. Norvell started 12-16 at Florida State, was on the hot seat. He won 19 in a row and got snubbed out of the college football playoff when Jordan Travis had his leg snapped in half. And then he's 5-15 since then. So kind of looking like an absolutely mid coach who went on a generational heater, did not get the payoff because of the corruption of the college football playoff committee, and then has since regressed back to earth. I'll say Knowles Coin, generational run there in the middle of that, made me a fake crypto millionaire. And now I think that coin is like gone the way of the ape NFTs. It's non-existent.
You're going to get investigated by the SEC, brother, not the Southeastern Conference, for some pump and dump schemes with that one.
That's right. I'm loading the boat, guys. I'm loading the boat. This is just a temporary setback. No.
Does it feel like to anybody else that the college football powers that be, or gods or fates or whatever it was, said, all right, this week is the week that we fire Norvell, and then they pull the lever, and it's just like, wait, wrong lever. Like, we're supposed to fire the other Norvell. How is he still coaching?
Jay had been bad at Colorado State.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, had gotten them to a ceiling. I think they had 8 wins.
They were a game away. They were a game out of the conference championship last year.
Last year, that's right. Yeah, 8 wins last year. Very talented team. That was with Torrey Horton down. So just, yeah, a disastrous start to this year. They did blow out Fresno State. We'll talk about that at the very end of the episode when we do our G5 standings. But yeah, that's pretty much all they've done this year. So anyway, watch this space. More Coaching Carroll news coming probably this week. It's been fast and furious and a weekly thing at this point. So we look forward to talking about the coaching carousel in week 10. Gentlemen, let's move into our big 3. And this big 3 is interesting because we've got a couple of SEC games, and then we kind of went off the reservation for the third one. We'll talk about that game when we get there. But for our money, as we were talking about stakes and quality of teams, and frankly, just the game that we're most interested to watch, we're going to Baton Rouge. We're going to Red Stick, number 3 Texas A&M, trying to break a long-time curse on the road at number 20 LSU, 6:30 p.m. game on ABC. Gentlemen, the home team has won this game the last 7 years in a row. Texas A&M kind of had a miraculous win last year when Marcel Reed came back in, pulled that game out of the fire for the Aggies and saved their blackout night. But Texas A&M has not won in Red Stick since 1994. We have not seen a victory in Louisiana in our lifetimes. That is 0 for the last 6. And Mike Elko actually today in a press conference responded to a beat writer's question of, hey, you guys have kind of struggled when you've gone to LSU. Like, what do you take away from that? And he said, by that, do you mean that we haven't won ever in Baton Rouge in most of our lifetimes? And of course, the answer was yes there. But Texas A&M is favored in this game. 3.5-point favorites. They're coming off a win over Arkansas. You've got LSU, who suffered their second loss of the season to Vanderbilt just a week ago. Garrett, take this one away here. Tell me what's kind of your biggest storyline when you look at a team who is undefeated, 7-0, coming into Baton Rouge with a lot of momentum, but obviously a home team that is always dangerous when they play at night in front of the home faithful.
Yeah. For me, storylines in this one, and this is going to spoil my pick here, but it's a statement win for Mike Elko and his Aggies. I think Mike Elko is in the business of breaking streaks right now. I think that's just what he's doing. Is he's doing things that we haven't talked about in decades, right? We're first 7-0 start at Texas A&M since '94. Also the same year that they last won in Baton Rouge. And so, for me, I'm looking at this game and I'm saying that Mike Elko has an opportunity here to not just get like the LSU, kind of on the road thing off his back, but also you're talking about 8-0. You're talking about starting to put to rest some of the jokes and the battered Aggie syndrome and all that stuff. There's enough reason to have already put it away, but I think that this is his big chance to kind of slam the door shut, and I think he can do it somewhat emphatically. I do have A&M minus the points in this one. I think that got bet up as well. I think that it was 2.5 when it opened, and now it's up to 3.5. So if the money's coming in to extend it a little bit for A&M, I'm feeling okay about that as well. Look, I think that a lot of this could just be talking about LSU being bad, and that's true. LSU is not very good on offense. They play well on defense, little banged up, but obviously a good defensive unit. But I think this has a lot more to do with what Texas A&M is and being good. Texas A&M has the most balanced offense in the SEC right now. They pass for 267 per game, run for 197. They average 36 points a game. They've scored 40 plus 4 times this year, 30 plus twice. They were only held under 30 once, and that's 16 against a pretty good Auburn defense who's played some tight games with pretty much everyone this year. Haven't been able to win any of them, but they played some tight ones. I think this personnel that the Aggie offense throws at you kind of makes you pick your poison when you try to defend them. Obviously, Marcel Reed growing a lot in his development, but you look around at the running backs. Le'Veon Moss before he got hurt was a dangerous one. Reuben Owens has been pretty good. EJ Smith starting to develop a little bit as well. You start to look on the outside. You got Casey Concepcion. You got Mario Craver. You got Nate Berkshire starting to become a target there in the middle as well. Ashton Bethel-Roman starting to break out. Like the names keep going. There's probably 8 or 9 guys you could legitimately point to being real legitimate playmakers, speed guys, size guys, things that you can do to really succeed. And meanwhile, the defense has been really good if you don't take Taylon Green into account, right? If you just forget about him for a second, the defense has been pretty dang good, borderline phenomenal in conference play. They rush the passer really well. They've covered well. They've been physical against the run. They chase after their assignment. Not a lot of broken tackles in open space. I'm really optimistic about what this is and what this could be for Texas A&M this year. Now, of course, obviously, when you're on the road in a tough place against a desperate team, that could always be bad, right? That could always be a really bad thing when you go on the road and the other team is needing a win. They got to find a way to save the season. They got to find a way to save some face. That's always dangerous, right? Problem is LSU can't run the football. LSU can't really protect the passer. A&M rushes the passer extremely well. I think that this is going to be a little bit of a bad spot for LSU. LSU is going to have some problems moving the ball, I think, all night. If Marcel Reed can just take what the defense is giving him, continue to do what they can in the run game with outside zone, inside zone, power, end around sweeps, screens to kind of extend that out if you need it, A&M's going to stretch it out and win, I think, pretty comfortably. I don't think big because I don't think the LSU defense gives up that big of numbers. I have A&M winning this one 23-10.
Lot to take away there. Trey, I'll flip it over to LSU because I think the main talking point here is the struggles against Vanderbilt felt like a microcosm of what they have not been able to do really all season long. They have not been able to protect Garrett Nussmeier. They have not been able to consistently run the ball. And they've left that defense out on the field time and time again for a very, very long time where the tight ends, the wide receivers, the athleticism of Vanderbilt was ultimately able to move the ball down the field long enough and effective enough to win a game at home. Do you feel like there is anything that LSU can take away from what Arkansas did to Texas A&M and use that to their advantage in this game?
I think there is, but it's not necessarily what LSU typically does well because LSU, we've talked about their offensive struggles ad nauseum on this show, right? They just haven't been good. It looked a little better. Getting 24 points was like a revelation against Vanderbilt. But when you look at what A&M has struggled with this year, it's dynamic offenses pushing the ball down the field, getting big explosive plays, right? A&M has really struggled with the big explosive play. That's not something that LSU has consistently been able to provide. another thing, if you dig deeper into some of the analytical stat nerd stuff, A&M does not give up quality drives at a rate that most other teams do. And LSU is not good at getting quality drives. This is a really bad matchup in my mind for LSU. Guys, I couldn't believe when I wrote it down. I'm picking everything in my battered Aggie heart wanted to emotionally hedge with an LSU bet here. This just feels like a bad matchup for LSU. You add in the offensive line injuries, right? Tyree Adams already ruled out on Monday with an ankle injury. A&M 6th in the nation in sacks. The backup wasn't very good against Vanderbilt, guys. Allowed a lot of pressures. I think his PFF grade was like a 32 or something in those range. It was low 30s when he was in there against Vanderbilt. So there's a lot to like about A&M in this matchup. It really just comes down to if you believe that there's some mystical voodoo in Baton Rouge, which, to be fair, that does happen quite a bit, and it happens to the Aggies quite a bit. 0-6 in Baton Rouge since in our lifetimes, right? As almost 30-year-olds, and so listen, everything in my battered Aggie heart wants to emotionally hedge with LSU, but this kind of needs to be a big win for Texas A&M, doesn't it? This kind of needs to be a statement win. Garrett, you talked about this being Elko's moment to have a big statement win. They kind of need it. And they're not out of the college football playoff race with a loss. Obviously not. They still have plenty of opportunities to get to the 10-win mark, get into the college football playoff. Even if they lose here, all the goals are still in front of them. But when you think about a coach on the hot seat, one of your biggest recruiting rivals, a team that you are signed up to play every single year over the next 4 years with a new SEC scheduling alignment, this is a massive chance to go into their house. They like to say it all the time, go in their trap, take over their trap. This is a big opportunity to not just win on the field on Saturday night, but win the perception battle over the next few years and set your program up against a major on the field and recruiting rival for the next few years and really send one of those big rivals that you have into a tailspin. This is a huge, huge moment for Mike Elko that I really, as a fan, just hope he takes advantage of.
Come for the college football picks, stay for Trey rapping. I think that's basically the brand that we've built on this show over the last 4 years. Guys, I'm going to make it the trifecta. I think this is a rubric game for me. Yes, LSU has a good defense and they are at home, but I just don't see how LSU is equipped to move this ball. 101st in red zone efficiency, guys, and Texas A&M has made a name this year of, yes, if you get down into the red zone, you're getting a field goal at best most times. They're not allowing a lot of touchdowns, and I just don't think that LSU is going to beat Texas A&M even at home with field goals. You mentioned the third down efficiency, the lack of quality drives. If LSU cannot run the ball, I just don't think that Garrett Nussmeier, for as good of a quarterback as he is a statue in that pocket. And we saw the offensive line break down in the second half last year. I think we are on track for another statement from this Texas A&M pass rush. Guys, through 7 weeks, they have 25 sacks already. That's top 10 in the country. They had 25 sacks all of 2024. The upgrade there, led by Cash Howell, has been incredible. I think Texas A&M is the much better team. And I think that, to your point, this is a chance to make a real statement with a lot of stakes on the line. I don't think that, if you drop one of these next two to LSU or to Missouri, I don't think there's any shame in that. Those are both tough opponents on the road in a very tough stretch of your schedule. This will be 3 straight SEC games on the road, which is just brutal to weather in the first place. But I think that A&M is the better team. I like the Aggies to get this win, make a little bit of history. Garrett, to your point, break another streak and keep right along rolling. Let us know, are you riding with the Aggies? It seems like a lot more of the country is kind of hopping on the bandwagon for Texas A&M, believing that this is a different team, hopping on with Marcel Reed with the running game. The defense has certainly been fantastic, really, outside of a couple of big chunk plays from Taylor Green and Mike Washington last week as well.
I do want to make a comment to any of you jumping on the bandwagon. We do appreciate it, obviously, but make sure you purchase a jersey because our defense doesn't take too kindly to people who are not in our jersey. So just be warned. That's your little warning on the front end.
That's a good point. Guys, let's go to the game day site this week. Number 10, Vanderbilt hosting number 15, Missouri, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN. This is the highest rank that Vanderbilt has been in the AP poll since week 4 of 1947. Shout out the Truman administration. They have not been ranked higher since week 6 of 1937. All of that to say, it's been a little bit since Vanderbilt has been this far up the podium. Trey, we'll start with you this time. Vanderbilt and Missouri are very similar teams, and you kind of made the point in our Discord earlier. You think that they're basically the same team.
I feel like it's that episode of The Office where they give Creed the find the difference pictures, and it's just the same picture. Because you look at what these two teams want to do. They both have mobile quarterbacks that talented passers can push the ball downfield when they want to, and can, especially when they get their tight ends involved, have a dynamic passing game. But really, they want to be run first teams. They have good running games, and they have explosive defensive lines. Even that, down to that, like very, very explosive defensive lines. I cannot figure out which way I'm leaning in this one. It feels like maybe Missouri is a slightly better version of Vanderbilt, or maybe Vanderbilt's a slightly better version of Missouri. We're going to find out on Saturday. I think I'm going to lean taking Mizzou and the points here, though, because I think of those two, Vanderbilt's had a magical run, not taking anything away from them. I think that they have a lot in front of them still, even if they do lose this game. But I do think Mizzou is just a little bit better on the top end talent that might separate them here. Diego Pavia magic aside, Vandy's running for 4.86 yards before contact. I might need to tweet our friend Parker Fleming and just make sure his stat is like accurate on his website with that, because that was just astounding when I said that. That's before their ball carriers are being touched, guys. They're already almost 5 yards down the field on average. That's going to have to be a focus for Mizzou, but Missouri's creating the 5th most havoc out of their front 7 all year long. We know Zion Young and Damian Wilson are dynamic pass rushers, but the key in this one is going to be, can they actually set the edge? Can they actually box people in? They've done a really good job of that against mobile quarterbacks so far this year. In SEC play, guys, against Lenora Sellers, Ty Simpson, and Jackson Arnold, they've given up -4 rushing yards to the opposing quarterback. I know that includes sacks in college. I am aware of that, but that's just, they're keeping guys in the pocket. They're not letting them scramble. They're letting their sacks outweigh whatever gains those quarterbacks do get. And Pavia did run for a lot last year. Like, I'm not throwing that away. He did throw, I think, 84 on 17 carries in Como last year. But I just think that this Missouri defense, I think that they've played really well, even against the better teams on their schedule. They went into Jordan Hare and kept their team in that game till the offense got going. They kept the team in the game in the second half when the offense was sputtering against Alabama. If the offense can just get a few big plays, right? If Ahmad Hardy can get back on track just a little bit, this could be a game where Missouri kind of asserts themselves and makes it known that they are an actual contender in the SEC and not just an also-ran.
I think my big question for Missouri, and I've been maybe the biggest supporter outside of the state of Missouri of this defense, because I do think that they're elite, that front 7 is scary. I have preached that every single week. I do wonder if we're starting to see the cracks in the foundation of Bo Pribula, right? Somebody tweeted out last week during their game against Auburn that Pribula and Jackson Arnold were essentially the same quarterback, and the stats at that time were like identical. It was like 100 yards passing on 15 attempts and an interception. Just basically no actual explosion through the air for either of those teams. And I think if Vanderbilt can stop up the running game and say, okay, Bo, you've got to beat us by throwing into coverage. I haven't seen Missouri really be able to do that against comparable talent. And so, we took Vanderbilt against LSU at home last week, or at least I did, speaking for my own personal rubric. And I think we're going to re-rack, guys. I'm going to go with Vanderbilt minus the points. I think Missouri is a better team overall than LSU. But again, I look at what Vanderbilt did and how they kind of confined LSU, won the line of scrimmage, both not only just the defensive line, the offensive line as well. Cole Kublik tweeted out a viral clip since then of the left guard for Vanderbilt knocking an edge rusher off his feet and then combining inside to knock the nose tackle off his feet, all in like a half second, right? I think Vanderbilt's playing with an edge. I like them at home, so I'll take them minus the points.
Well, and Mitch, to the point about Prabula, that's kind of the big reason why I'm also with you on Vandy. I have Vandy winning 31-28, just barely covering there. I think it's going to be really close. And honestly, either way wouldn't shock me. I think, like what Trey was saying, they're very similar teams, but back on Bo Prabula for a second, he's thrown for 57% each of the last 2 weeks, has four total touchdowns, or four total interceptions, actually. Going to flip that. Two in each. So two picks in both the last couple games. When you're looking for the little thing that's going to separate the two and say, like, oh, like, what's going to be my little difference maker here, right? Because we've talked about the run game for both, right? I think Vandy's a little bit better on the running defense than they are on the passing defense. So, Bo Prabula, you should be able to take advantage of that. But right now, I don't know if he's the quarterback that's going to do that, right? I just don't know if he right now is seeing the field, playing the way that he needs to, or even has the confidence to do that right now. So when you take that and then you look at the other side with Diego Pavia, who's a guy who can improvise, can make things happen, just a guy that I believe in, right? And I think the team believes in him as well, a guy that you can look at and say, hey, if we're in a bad spot, you're going to find a way to pull us through this. I think when you combine those two things, I think I just trust Vanderbilt on offense a little bit more right now. And I do think that they'll end up, kind of neck and neck, a little bit of more, like kind of late game scoring, but I think I would trust Vandy to come out on top of that one. So yeah, I've got 31-28 Vanderbilt winning this one, and Diego Pavia having a little bit of a killer instinct at home to figure it out.
My favorite storyline and matchup to watch in this game, guys, is the tight ends versus the linebackers and the safeties, right? You've got Eli Stowers for Vanderbilt, who's the top fullback, H-back prospect, according to most draft boards. You've got Brett Norfleet, who's one of the best tight ends overall in the country. I think their usage and their effectiveness against two very solid linebacking cores and safety duos may define this game, because how many times have we seen the pop pass to the tight end, the tight end leak, right? Where the play gets going, they stay in to block, and then there's that release out to the side. Both of those guys are very solid athletes. And when you talk about needing a critical first down, needing to extend the drive, scoring in the red zone, I look at those tight ends as kind of mainstays for how these programs are putting points up on the scoreboard. I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup to watch all game long. So please write into the comments. If you're listening on the Spotify app, swipe up. Let us know which program you're riding with. Maybe which tight end is your favorite. Who's got the edge in that matchup? We would love to hear your pick for Vanderbilt and Missouri. Guys, let's go to a game that I don't think is going to get the coverage that it probably deserves. And this was a contender for our slept-on game of the week. We're going to go to the Big Ten for that one. But gentlemen, let's go to Big 12 country to talk about number 11 BYU at Iowa State. The Clones, 2.5-point favorites, 2:30 p.m. game on Fox. Now, when we were discussing this game, the line, and we were talking about this on the live show, Trey, on Saturday night, we kind of figured that coming off of a bye at home, a big emotional result for BYU in the Holy War, we figured that Iowa State would probably be favored. And sure enough, they are 2.5-point favorites at home. My question to you is why? What do you think Iowa State is leaning on and Vegas is leaning on to give the Clones that edge?
Well, first of all, it's not a big favorite, right? It's still 2.5, I think, as we're recording. That's just the standard Big 12 line at this point, right? That you kind of give to the home team if all things else are equal. But if you're picking Iowa State, you're betting on a much improved run defense, kind of stifling what BYU likes to do, a crowd feeding off of that at night, right? I think this is a night game. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
2:30.
Okay, well, maybe the sun will set a little earlier up north, and then it'll get night by the fourth quarter. So, or a rain delay like A&M Arkansas last week. But this is a situation where you're betting on an improved run defense, kind of stifling what BYU wants to do, and the crowd feeding off that, and things just kind of spiraling for BYU. What I'm concerned about, though, and why I'm picking BYU to cover this spread and maybe even win outright, is I don't think BYU is going to be faltered by that. They're 9-1 in road games since the beginning of the 2024 season. This is a spot that they've been in time and time again. They did stumble last year at Arizona State. That was a big raucous environment that they were right there, and it was a game right down to the wire, had a chance to win in that one as well. But they're kind of built for this. We talked about it on the live show Saturday night, Mitch. They're kind of built for situations like this where you got to rely on the intangibles. You got to rely on the want to. You got to rely on your culture. And BYU has that in spades. They are going to get the extra yards. They're going to win the run battle come hell or high water, win those inches, as our former coach at A&M liked to say. They're just really, really good at that. And they have a culture to back that up. It's not just coach speak coming from Kalani Sitake. It's a culture that he's instilled year over year. And I think that's going to carry them to a big road spot on Saturday afternoon and keep them right in the middle of this Big 12 title race for another week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of BYU in this one. I think what we saw out of them against Utah should prove that they are a good enough team to compete in this conference, but also a good enough team to find ways to win when it's not exactly their style, right? Like they just find ways to win games. I was kind of looking at some of this, like most of the games that they played, every game in conference for them has been decided by 4 points or less, except for the Arizona game that went to overtime. So like technically the game ended tied. So, obviously someone's got to win by, 3 or 6 in that one. So, yeah, I'm just kind of looking at this and saying they play close games, but they win close games, right? They find a way to control it. They find a way to dominate on the defensive side when they need to. LJ Martin is the best back in the Big 12. He's averaging 6.1 per carry, leads the conference in carries. So he's doing it at a highly effective clip, and he's doing it a lot. So I look at him and I say, yeah, put this game on his back, especially going on the road, having to, take a run game with you is a lot better than having to take a pass game with you. Iowa State's been a little up and down stopping the run this year. They got worked by Cincinnati. So if you're looking for maybe a little bit of encouragement, you can say, hey, LJ Martin might be looking at a really good day in that one. And the weird thing for me is Iowa State started out the year with such a clutch gene, right? It seemed like they just had it. But they're reeling after a couple losses. They needed that bye week in a bad way. I think right now they're a little bit cold, maybe not quite ready to go, maybe a sleepy start coming out of the bye. Meanwhile, BYU, hot, confident, feeling great. I think the Cougars keep it rolling in a really tough spot. I'm going to have them win 27-22.
Mitch, I want to jump in here just really quickly because I can hear the Iowa State fans already trying to make this point. This is the same situation they were in last year, though. They started 6-0, lost 2 in a row, 1 out to make it to the Big 12 championship game, I should say. Same situation this year, 5-0, lost a couple games. Maybe you shouldn't have. Everything's still right in front of them. Now I'll let you continue.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to take Iowa State minus the points here because of that. Their last 3-game losing streak, to your point, 2022, they have had a couple of times where they've lost multiple games in a row, but nobody beats Matt Campbell 3 times in a row. They're off a bye week, which historically I know has not been a strength for Matty C and the boys, but given the fact that BYU is coming off such an emotional high in a massive statement win over Utah, they're undefeated right now. This just feels like a classic landmine situation, right? If there was take away the logos, the teams, the graphic on the side of the helmet, I think I'm taking the home team 9 times out of 10 here, and I am nervous about that because, Garrett, to your point, the last time that we saw Iowa State playing a ranked opponent, they were getting gashed on the ground by Cincinnati. There was just nothing that they could do to stop that backfield attack from the Bearcats. So could this plan all go horribly wrong? Absolutely. It kind of should, given the fact that LJ Martin is one of the best backs in the country and what BYU does physically in the trenches. But given this specific spot in the calendar, they're fresh, they're refocused. BYU maybe feeling themselves a little bit. Maybe they just get refocused. I don't know. The Cougars are one of the most, physical, hopefully mentally tough teams as well under Kalani Sitake. I'm just going to lean the home team here. I think they're favored by a reason. Can't really tell you what it is, but that line stinks to me, so I'm going to lean into it, and I'll take the Clones while you guys ride with BYU. Those are our big 3. We'd love to know your picks on all 3 of those games, so write in at 3techpod or 3techpod@gmail.com. Give us your thoughts. Let's have the conversation offline as well. Guys, our best sleep today, slept on game of the week, is the Floyd of Rosedale. Maybe the best rivalry trophy in the entire game. Minnesota at Iowa. Iowa's an 8.5-point favorite. What? 2:30 p.m. on CBS. This game, of course, brought to you by Best Sleep Today. If you're tired of being tired, don't want to deal with the CPAP, the bulky mask, the machines, or expensive surgery, talk to Dr. Mason and the gang over at Best Sleep Today, bestsleeptoday.com. Mercifully, guys, first point that I have to get out here, mercifully, the CBS crew finally has a game that matters. They have been dragged through the mire with some of these games, and that is looking like one of the worst TV deals in quite some time, to be quite honest. Just the games that have been on CBS's airwaves in the afternoon in the aggregate have just paled in comparison to what you've had with Fox, with ESPN, with ABC, the Disney channels. And, we saw some ratings, some stats come out. The SEC and the Big 12 are kind of lapping CBS and the Big 10 when it comes to viewership in this afternoon window. So I'm happy for the fellas over at CBS to get to watch a good game. But this line, what, 8.5 in favor of Iowa, a Minnesota team that's coming off an absolute drubbing of Nebraska. I'll kind of throw this to whoever wants to take it here. That line makes no sense to me. I feel like Minnesota's going to play Iowa closer than that, even though Iowa's at home.
Well, I think the computers definitely don't like Minnesota, and for good reason, because the start to the season was really brutal. Most people probably I guess a lot of people probably watched on Friday night in a standalone spot against Nebraska. That was a good look for them. Before that, the only view that most people, not sickos like us, but most people probably had only seen for maybe a quarter of the Ohio State game, because that one got out of hand really quickly. But this is a better Minnesota team than it was a couple weeks ago. They handled a really solid Nebraska team at home last week. The run game finally got going. The pass game is doing just enough. I'm taking Minnesota to cover this spread here. I don't necessarily love Iowa catching that many points. I'd have to go back and do the research. I didn't have time to do it for this video, but somebody can probably tell us in the comments what their record is against the spread with this big of a gap, because it feels like since 2020 at least, you'd always take the points in this spot. So we're going to take it here. Usually I'd lean into a weird line like that, but I think Minnesota finally got that ground game going. Like I mentioned, I think the pass game has just enough to keep a really solid Iowa defense honest and keep them from just swarming the backfield completely and really stifling everything. So I think Minnesota can keep this close. And then on the other side of the ball, Minnesota defensively, the game plan was great last week against Nebraska. They just completely made Dylan Raiola's life miserable. Iowa's offensive line is nowhere near as bad as Nebraska's offensive line, but there's some talent in that front, and Iowa is not going to challenge you down the field. Iowa is 134th in average depth of target. Minnesota, for their liking, is 89th, so they're not that much better, but that feels like a NFL versus JV in comparison to what Iowa's doing. So I think Minnesota can kind of load the box here. I was going to get theirs on the ground because they just have a lot of dudes and they play nasty and play you down to your level. But I don't like Iowa running away with this one. Anytime the team that Iowa's been facing is competent on at least one side of the ball, it's been a pretty close game. So I think that trend's going to continue.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Trey. I think this is probably an ugly one. I've got Minnesota plus the points, but Iowa winning as well. I've got it 19-16 just because I wanted it to be an ugly score, and I was trying to think of how I could manipulate the score to make it look bad. So I'm going 19-16 on this one. I think the key here for Iowa is running the football, obviously. They really haven't been able to pass with any sort of consistency. Minnesota has held 4 teams under 62 yards rushing this year, but their other totals that they gave up, looking at it, is 138, 133, and 253. The 253, funny enough, was to Purdue, and they won that game. So I'm not even sure that the rushing total is an indicator if Iowa does go for a big number in the running game. They just are going to have to, right? Because if Iowa doesn't run the game, they're not going to do very much on offense. And so they have to find a way to run. If Minnesota can shut it down like they did last week, it's, lights, that's it. Minnesota needs to keep their own ground game going as well. Iowa's let up some lower totals on the ground. Penn State last week, though, they kept it close with a real powerful ground game. So, I think a lot of this is going to be just an on-the-ground slugfest, punts, field position, find a way to rip off the big one where you're out there for another big 40-yard game, something like that. Feels like it should be a close one, and if it's at home, then I'm going to go probably Iowa this direction. Honestly, nothing would surprise me in this one outside of Gronowski throwing for 300. That would be the only shocking result for me.
I know Vegas is not in the habit of throwing away money, but I cannot see a way that Iowa comfortably covers this number. You guys have laid out the passing stats. Minnesota is 9th in rushing defense. And furthermore, on the offensive side, not only are they more versatile and able to throw the ball, not at an elite level, but they'll be able to move the ball through the air a little bit. Drake Lindsey has done a fine job at quarterback. They don't turn the football over either. They're +5 in the turnover margin for the season. That's top, I believe, 30 in the country right now. Iowa, to cover this number, they have to force turnovers, and they're going to have to completely bottle up Minnesota's offense, which certainly could happen. But I don't know that Iowa runs away from the Gophers either. So I'm on the points. It feels like we are stepping right into the trap that Vegas wants for us. So, when Iowa wins this game by 20, I guess we'll talk about this on the live show. But that is one too many points to be given away in the Floyd of Rosedale. I do like Iowa to win this game at home. Very close, though. Very low scoring, very close game. All right, let's move to our Saturday storylines, gentlemen. And we're switching it up this week to keep it moving a little bit because we are so deep. We want to cover as many teams as we possibly can. We've taken Saturday storylines and we're going to turn it into a buy or sell edition, conference by conference. So let's start in the Big 12 because I think this is the most interesting conference slate for my money. And I'm going to play game show host a little bit here for you guys. So buy or sell, starting in the Big 12. Prompt number 1, the winner of Houston at number 24, Arizona State, goes to Arlington. Sparky favored by 8.5.
I'm going to sell this just on the back that I don't think automatically the winner will be there because I can't quite get there with Houston yet. I know they're much improved. I know so much better than last year. Willie Fritz is doing a fantastic job with the talent he's brought in through the portal. Starting to get some recruiting hype as well. But you look down the schedule. We talked about this Saturday night, Mitch. They still have Baylor and TCU. They still have some landmines in other places. This would be a massive win for Houston, but I'm just not quite there. Even if they get this one on the road in a big letdown spot for Arizona State, that they would run the gauntlet with the rest of their schedule, and that's what I think they need to do. Arizona State, I think this one they need to have. If they win, I'm projecting them to beat Iowa State next week in Ames. I think that they are a better team than Iowa State right now. I know it's on the road, but I think if they get past this one, they don't get hit in the letdown spot. I would buy that for Arizona State. They feel like the second best team in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you, Trey. I think I'm going to sell this one. I think there's just too many combinations of Texas Tech, BYU, and Cincinnati finding their way to Arlington to make that one of two of those three find their way into it. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Arizona State because they do have pole position right now on Tech. I just think, again, there's too many combinations of games. There's too many ways it can go different. I've seen Arizona State look a little bit worse at times, and I've seen them play down to, make games a little closer than they probably should have been. And so I don't know that I trust them entirely right now to make that run. It wouldn't necessarily shock me, though, and that's the thing about the Big 12 is I think at this point nothing really shocks me. And the one thing that I'm almost rooting for is finding a way for it to be BYU and Cincinnati because that's a ticket I have to buy.
I'm going to buy this. I think Arizona State's probably going to win this game. Trey, to your point, I don't think Houston's quite there. I think it's an admirable season. I think you're looking at 8-9 wins for the Cougars this year. But I'm going to buy that Arizona State wins this game, that they keep it going. Sam Levitt's back. He's healthy. The offense just looks different, obviously, when he's under center. And the defense has been disruptive and wreakers of havoc on opposing offenses as well. So I'm going to take the Sun Devils to win this game. They'll be in Arlington. I'll buy that one. Prompt number 2 out of the Big 12. Baylor can ruin Cincinnati's season on Saturday. Cincinnati, 5.5-point favorites in this one. Cincinnati has just lost that season opener to Nebraska, if I'm not mistaken. But the Bearcats have road trips to Utah and TCU. They've got home dates with Arizona and BYU still on the schedule. You figure Cincinnati probably drops at least one of those games, maybe more. Maybe this point is mute if you think that. But assuming that Cincinnati only drops one the rest of the way, if Baylor were to win this game, they would essentially be keeping Cincinnati out of Arlington. So buy or sell, this game makes or breaks Cincinnati's trip to Arlington.
Sell, because I don't think Baylor has the horses on defense to stop Cincinnati, especially on the road. I think Cincinnati's the most slept on. We talk about our slept on game of the week. Cincinnati's the most slept on team maybe in the nation because no one is talking them as a serious contender in the Big 12, and they've already beaten Iowa State. They have, like you mentioned, shots at several of the other contenders going down the stretch. So they obviously still control their own destiny. I don't think that stops against Baylor this week, and I just don't trust Baylor's defense on the road against a talented quarterback like Brennan Sorsby.
One second, Gary, before you jump in, what changed? You were on Baylor plus the points last week against TCU. Is it just the extra data point?
I think Cincinnati's a better team than TCU. And I think that TCU's defense stepped up last week until they didn't after the rain delay. And TCU's defense surprised me in that game. I really wouldn't trust either defense in that game. But yeah, I think Cincinnati's a much better team than TCU in this moment.
Yeah, we were on opposite ends of that coin, but I don't think either of us actually backed that up with any sort of hard-earned American currency. So
don't bet
Garrett,
on the Big 12 at all, guys. If you bet on the Big 12, call the number.
Garrett, floor is yours.
That's almost my take here. I'm agreeing with everything you say, Trey, but I'm going to buy that this is extremely possible that Baylor can ruin Cincinnati's season. And it's entirely because if you look across this slate up and down, not just in the Big 12, but across the country, not a lot of games are screaming chaos, and I know better, okay? I know that the college football gods, the powers that be, will not allow a quiet Saturday full of chalk. I know that can't happen. So if I'm looking around, this feels like a place where that could happen, right? It feels like a place where big-time upset and, Baylor finds a way to win this one by like 20 or something, just running away with it, and it shocks the whole country. It has to happen to somebody this week. I don't think it happens to Cincinnati, but if I got to guess somewhere, then I'll buy that it can happen. The prompt was Baylor can ruin Cincinnati's season, not that they're going to. I'll take that for my Big 12 chaos for the week.
Our team has stepped on that landmine before, dadgummit, so anything's possible. There's no doubt about that.
It's extremely possible.
Other Big 12 games real fast, not buy or sell, but just throw out any notes, anything that sticks out to you. You've got the Sunflower Showdown, Kansas 3.5-point favorites versus Kansas State. Tech is nearly getting 40 against Oklahoma State at home. No section, 221 or 213, whatever it is. The
no shirty one.
Yeah, the Banana Republic that they've got up in Stillwater didn't matter last week, unfortunately. TCU catching 15.5 against West Virginia. They're on the road. In Utah, 15.5-point favorites also minus Colorado. Trey, is there a game out of that quartet that interests you the most? You're muted.
Sorry, my mic muted itself again. I know I'm not supposed to talk about Kansas State. I know I'm not supposed to. I'll just say that Kansas State has beaten Kansas 16 times in a row. And if it were ever going to change, it would be this year. Right? It would have to change, but I'm not supposed to talk about Kansas State, so I'll throw it back to you guys.
My only question or take out of this entire group of games is if Oklahoma State fans travel to this one, which I can't imagine why you would, and they take their shirts off in this stadium, do tortillas get thrown at them? That's my big question.
They're not allowed to anymore.
You can throw tortillas at other people.
That's my question, right? They got to have the tortillas, and they can't throw them on the field. Can you throw them at shirtless Oklahoma State fans if they travel? That's my only question.
I think Tech is missing a big opportunity here. They could set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest tortilla fight by just letting people fling them at each other in the stands and just saying no rules there. But don't throw them on the field. You throw them on the field, it's all over. We all got to go home.
Or if you world's throw them at each largest fine or mass arrest for getting all the tortillas on the field.
Just the world's largest food fight going on in the stands around that. I did see someone made the idea of printing tortilla printed towels and waving those around and throwing those.
And you know where those will end up, Mitch? Where
on
those
the
will
field?
End up where?
On the field?
Yeah, of course. Why are we handing them?
And they should end up on the field.
Yeah, listen. After the Kansas debacle and the pocket knife gate, I'm fully in support of Texas Tech here. I think the Big 12 is obviously probably being smart and taking all the risk and liability factors into account here, but they're being the fun police, and I hate that. So Texas Tech minus whatever against the.
I was going to say throwing tortilla-shaped towels onto the fields. It feels like the biggest Jean Ralphio got off on a technicality. It feels like the biggest one of those ever.
Gosh, the press conference would be explosive after that game if that ends up happening. So I'm kind of rooting for that. Guys, let's move to the SEC. Continue the buy or sell game. Buy or sell Oklahoma as a favorite. They're 4.5-point favorites right now over Ole Miss.
I'm buying this one, guys. I think that the matchup is really rough for Ole Miss. We saw it last week when, yes, they put up a lot of points on the backs of big plays against Georgia, but when push came to shove, they could not run the football with consistency. They could not get the big chunk plays on the ground. Ole Miss really relies on those big chunk plays. Oklahoma is third best in the country at not surrendering those big chunk plays. So I think Oklahoma can win this game. I think that they can find some separation here on the backs of a really solid defense, and Lane Kiffin still has not beaten a ranked SEC team on the road. I got to pick against it until I see it happen.
I'm going to go the other direction. I think that he figures it out. I'm not sold on Oklahoma's defense. They did some good things against some maybe not so good teams, and then kind of got exposed by a bad Texas offense and let Texas kind of run a little bit on them. I think this is one where Ole Miss finds a way to win. I think that Lane's going to come up with a game plan looking at that Texas game, figuring out what works against this defense. I think he's going to find a way to move the football. I know it wasn't great, but I think he also feels the pressure. And the only reason I think Lane doesn't do this is if he's got some kind of like back deal with Florida already where he's not paying attention and just decides to just mail it in for this one and say, yeah, we're just going through the motions. Trinidad, you're coming with me down to the swamp. Like we're doing it next year.
Yeah, he gets in on the red eye from Gainesville right before this one, so he might be a little distracted. I'm gonna buy this one. I don't like buying it. I don't know that Oklahoma covers, but I mean for a lot of the same reasons that I took Georgia to beat Ole Miss last week. Lane Kiffin's just a different coach on the road against a ranked opponent. Better defense at home. I think John Mateer is getting back. He's getting healthy. Looked decent last week against South Carolina. The running game kind of found itself, albeit against a very bad South Carolina team. But, if Torrey Blaylock's going to be the bell cow, good for them. And I like Oklahoma's defense to figure it out, and the Sooners just to squeak by the Rebs this week at home. Guys, buy or sell, Bobby Petrino gets his statement win against Auburn this weekend. 1.5-point favorites are the War Eagles on the road, but boy, Bobby Petrino, he's been sniffing around to win. Arkansas looked good against Texas A&M, some big explosive plays. I mean, Auburn is comparable to Texas A&M on the defensive front, but boy, they do not have the horses on offense. I'm buying this. I think Bobby Petrino's going to make a statement this week, and he may get Hugh Freeze fired.
I'm with you, Mitch. I'm buying this. I don't think Auburn can keep up with Arkansas. You have to score points to beat Arkansas. Arkansas can be scored on if you're competent on offense. And there's also Hugh Freeze was open that there's open quarterback competition this week, and we're going to see who the starter is come Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. So you'll love that in the middle of the season, and that can never go wrong. That only works.
The only reason I don't want to agree with y'all is because I don't want to make it 3 for 3 and jinx it. Like, I just feel like it's got to be the thing that happens at this point, right? Like, they were so close against Tennessee a couple weeks ago. They were so close against A&M. Couldn't find a way to make that last play to get over the hump. It just feels like it's time. Like, it feels like they're going to get it done against Auburn. I don't understand, again, like Auburn still being in this and trying to get down in the trenches and find a way to win. The offense has been so bad, right? It's just been awful. So I think it's going to get it done. Taylor Green's a stud. He can do it against good defenses. We saw it last week against A&M. I think he's going to find a way to do it.
Hugh Freeze is 5-15 against SEC opponents. He has lost 4 straight this year. Gentlemen, in Auburn's illustrious history, he is the only head coach to ever lose at least his first 3 conference games in 3 consecutive seasons. And he's actually the only Auburn coach to retain his job after back-to-back losing seasons. I don't know what Auburn players are still playing for, right? You kind of worried that Arkansas might be the pack it up, pack it in special. I think it's Auburn this week. I think they get blown out on the road. I think they quit very visibly on the field. Arkansas feels like they have that breakthrough. They give their fans some sort of catharsis. I don't know what to hang your hat on, unless maybe you get the backup quarterback bump and Ashton Daniels comes in and is just a revelation and makes Freeze and look like an idiot for not starting him from the very beginning. But I don't know what you do if you're Auburn. I think Arkansas gets it done and gets it done in a big way. Final buy or sell here in the SEC. Alabama is on upset alert against South Carolina. They're 13.5-point favorites, but guys, I mean, you look around the national headlines, it's Cocktober, right? Surely Alabama's in danger of losing this one.
Do we know what time this game is? Is it a night game or is it a afternoon game? I can stall while someone looks that up. Unless it's a night game.
I'll look it up.
There's voodoo at night at Williams-Brice. That's always a potential problem there. But I think we can put the Kalen DeBoer road struggles to bed after the last few weeks. I don't think that that's a problem anymore at all. Winning at Missouri, that was a classic spot where you would have seen it. I know Missouri's a much better team, and it has been the worst teams. But 2:30 kick, I don't see this being, I guess, 3:30 Eastern, so the sun will go down towards the end, but I don't see this being a problem. South Carolina's bad, y'all. They're just a bad football team.
Yeah, even if it was last year's South Carolina against this year's Bama, I'd still pick Bama, even on the road, even in a night spot, just because I really believe that this Bama team is very, very, very good. Yeah, I don't see any way that they're actually losing this one. I guess it's possible to, crazy injuries derail the entire thing and we're in a dogfight. But outside of something like that, which is completely unforeseen, this should be one that Bama walks through pretty easy. South Carolina's not good.
You've got two competing ideas here because on one hand, Kalen DeBoer has been amazing against ranked opponents. He's been nails at home, but he's struggled against the easy ones, the layups on the road. He's 14-4 in his short tenure at Alabama. Those 4 losses already tie Nick Saban for the number of losses that he suffered to unranked teams for his entire coaching tenure in Tuscaloosa, right? That's the storyline that you're harping on if you're taking South Carolina. And maybe you're also throwing around Cocktober and 'tis the season and look out, South Carolina at home. Guys, Cocktober's a sham. It's designed to sell tickets and get people in seats during a month that Shane Beamer historically stinks in. He's 5-10 in the month of October. Don't listen to anybody that's saying Cocktober is a real thing, because outside of 2 upsets that he's pulled in this month, you can basically set your watch to South Carolina disappointing and losing ball games. So I'm going to take Alabama. I'm going to sell this one. I just don't think that Alabama, the more complete team, the more physical team, is actually on upset alert here. I am a little bit worried that maybe Alabama can't run the ball to fully put South Carolina away. But Trey, as you mentioned, South Carolina's bad on offense. They are 115th in scoring offense. You give Ty Simpson any time to throw, and he's going to dissect this South Carolina defense. I think if Alabama scores over 21 points, it's over. I don't think South Carolina can win. So we're not talking about covering. We're just talking about winning, selling this. Alabama's going to win this. I think they win it rather comfortably as well.
The only dangerous part about South Carolina at home this year is if you're walking near the Porta Johns. That's the only thing you got to worry about.
Yikes! Yeah, scary scenes. Avert your eyes. TVMA icon there for that.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. All right, let's go to the Big Ten. We won't do buy or sell here in this one just to keep it moving, but appreciate you guys playing along for that one. I think that was fun. We might keep that up throughout the rest of the season.
We got to do this again. That was a fun game show, Mitch.
I think so. All right, I'll speak to the execs about it. We'll see if we can get past the pilot episode. $1. That's right. Big Ten storylines. You guys tell me where you want to take this. Let's start. Indiana, 24.5-point favorites. Are they in danger at all against the Fighting Jerry Neuheisels and Tim Skippers of UCLA as they come calling?
No.
I don't think so. I think it's been a fun story. It's been a really fun story, and I think UCLA can push for a bowl game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they're in any danger unless they are just stricken by a stomach bug or something the night before the game.
Right. Maybe they find a way to cover. Like, they've been a little bit better on offense, so maybe it's a little bit more of a scoring thing. And, maybe it's one of those, like, Indiana pulls the starters in the 4th and they kind of find their way back in through the back door. But, yeah, it's no real danger of losing this game, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think, the slow start against Sparty was concerning, but then Mendoza and company figured it out and buried Michigan State. Northwestern and Nebraska kind of matters, guys. Northwestern is right up there towards the top of the Big Ten standings right now. They're 5-2. Nebraska's off a terrible loss. Northwestern has won 4 in a row for the first time since 2020. Won't necessarily make you guys make a pick there, but it is something worth monitoring, and not for the reasons that we thought. We thought Nebraska would be pushing for a playoff spot, that maybe this was just kind of a landmine situation for the Huskers. No. David Braun and the boys intent on upsetting the Huskers. They're getting 7 in the hook right now against the Cornhuskers. So if you're fading Nebraska, this might be a good spot for you. Number 23, Illinois at Washington. 4.5-point favorites are the Huskies. We've talked about Illinois' struggles, especially when they go to the Pacific Northwest. They got boxed by Oregon last year. Washington did not look good, Trey. You and I were lamenting that on Saturday night in protest of that performance on the road in the Big House, me sticking my neck out along with you, saying that that was going to be an upset special. I will be boycotting this pick, but I do want to let you know that the Huskies have a 64% chance of winning this per the FPI. So maybe just outright Illinois, Washington, which way are you guys leaning?
I'm leaning Washington. I know they looked really bad against a very physical Michigan defense, but they're the type of team that gives Illinois problems. And the time zone theory is not undefeated at this point in the Big Ten, but it's batting a pretty good average. So I'm going to go with the team that doesn't have to cross multiple time zones.
Yeah, and I'm just not necessarily impressed with Illinois when they play a really good team. I know they got their dub over USC. I don't love them when they're playing a really good team. I think Washington is a really good team. So yeah, I think Washington finds a way at home.
Michigan at Michigan State. The Wolverines are 14.5-point favorites. Sparty's bad. They're talking about firing Jonathan Smith already in East Lansing, which I kind of think would be a mistake. I felt like that was a really good fit, and it hasn't yielded results, but I don't know that I like the idea of jettisoning Smith yet. It's a rivalry game. This can be a close game, even when one side tends to be kind of bad. It's Battle for Paul Bunyan's Axe, I believe, is the rivalry name. Amazing trophy. Go look that up if you have not seen that already. Guys, the only question here, I'm not doubting Michigan will win this game unless you want to take Sparty, but my question is, do we get another brawl in the tunnel?
I mean, I really hope not. I genuinely hope there's not. I hope that Michigan State shows a little fight on the field this time. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I don't think it'll probably end up being close. I think Michigan probably wins this one going away, and maybe it's close for a half, and then they win it, big at the end. But yeah, you better, fight on the field if you're going to try to do any sort of jawing in the tunnel on the way out. It's just embarrassing. So yeah, I don't expect that to happen. I think it's probably a lot more of a tuck your tail and lick your wounds at the end of it type of thing for Sparty.
You were close, Mitch. It's the battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy, not Paul Bunyan's axe. That would be
that's Wisconsin.
That would be
Minnesota,
Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Apologies.
Listen, we told you this a couple weeks ago, Big Ten people. We are not Big Ten. We didn't grow up in Big Ten country. I think you guys are making up trophies at this point just to mess with us down south. I saw there was a spittoon last week involved in the Indiana Michigan State game. That was not a thing before this year. You cannot convince me that I know it's probably been around since like 1885 and has a story with
since Lewis and Clark went west. Yeah,
exactly. Old man Jenkins brought it.
But also, to be fair, that's not fair. It's the same namesake on the trophy. It's just trophy versus X. That's not fair.
I mean,
how are we
to be fair, they're very distinct. I was thinking about the right trophy in my head, just gave it the wrong name. But Big Ten fans have probably tuned me out by this point.
Yeah. Anyways, I think Michigan wins going away. I don't think Michigan State is very good. And Michigan just kind of lurking around, man. I know they lost to USC. They lost to Oklahoma. They have one conference loss. Look at their schedule. They still have Northwestern, who's better than we expected. They play Purdue at home after Michigan State. They go to Maryland. And then the big home game against Ohio State. If they win this weekend, they don't get got in a rivalry spot. I don't want to say it's a one-game season with Northwestern looking better, but feels like a one-game season to get into the playoff.
Yeah, I'm going to be at home for rivalry weekend. Last year was in College Station. That was fun, but, Trey, we didn't really get to watch the games in any great detail as we were kind of traveling tailgate to tailgate. This year, I plan to be right on my couch, just observing all of it. So I can't wait for that. Jump over to the ACC, and I'll let you guys pick a game out here. You've got all of our notes in front of you. ACC is kind of a sleepy, very, very sleepy, uninspiring schedule. But if there was one game that you were going to throw on or a storyline to pick out, Garrett, start with you. Which one of those games catches your attention?
Well, I'm going to let Trey have weight because I know that's probably what he wants to talk about. So I guess in absence of that game, I just would rather watch Georgia Tech because it's Georgia Tech, and I
Sure.
want to keep watching them play. Just a fun team to watch play. I got a guy at work that's a big Georgia Tech fan as well, so it's been a lot of fun. Us, on our respective teams that maybe haven't always enjoyed the success that we've hoped, enjoying a lot of success at this point in the season. So, I'll probably end up watching Georgia Tech for a little bit, but I won't steal Trey's thunder with the Wake Forest game.
I do have one beige flag to raise on Georgia Tech. They're a top 10 team. They found a way to win. They've had some close games, but according to College Football Nerds, and I found this tweet earlier, their strength of schedule is 72nd nationally. They haven't played a top 40 team per the SP Plus, and they almost lost to 65th Wake Forest. Right, that was a close game. They kind of pulled that one out of the fire at the last second. In the College Football Nerds FPI and SP Plus, Auburn is actually rated higher as an overall team performance. So
I saw quite a bit of College Football Nerds content today that made me roll my eyes. This was one of them. I think winning games has to matter at some point. I get analytics. Like, I totally understand looking at the numbers and, trying to compare apples and oranges, SEC versus ACC's, schedules. I get it. But no, I think winning games matters.
Syracuse has not been very good this year, and they're at home. Line seems a little bit low given what Syracuse has put on the field, and Georgia Tech being within the friendly confines, but I think I'm with you. I'll take Georgia Tech to win this one. Trey, tipped your hand to the pick already. Wake Forest hosting SMU. The Ponies are just 3.5-point favorites, and it's an 11 a.m. kick.
Yeah, if you haven't been watching what's going on in Winston-Salem, it has been a lot of fun to watch along, and they have kind of been rolling folks the last couple of weeks. It's been really fun to watch. They were off last week after they won back-to-back games against Virginia Tech and just destroyed Oregon State up in Corvallis. I like Wake Forest here. The vibes are high. Ben Arbuckle, or excuse me, not Ben Arbuckle. The vibes are high in Winston-Salem. I'll say that. I'm running on a little low sleep here, fellas, but
Jake Dickert's done a heck of a job. Jake Dickert's done
thank you.
He has done it wrong Washington State guy. He's done a heck of a job.
If you're mad as a Wake Forest fan, just go back and watch our season preview from August where I was hyping you guys up. I know about your team.
He's been carrying water for you since like April, basically. So yeah, Wake Forest, fun story right now. Are you taking them to beat SMU outright?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. I think SMU has Miami next week, right? Is that next week?
I think so, at home.
Yeah.
No, that's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's November 1st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is a textbook look ahead spot.
SMU must have a bye next week then.
Let down from winning in Death Valley, looking ahead to Miami, Wake Forest knocks them off.
So is that Trey's statement of support for Wake Forest this week? Is his, we're just going to commit to the program? Is that him?
That might be.
Absolutely.
That might sign the NLI. Let's get you up there in Demon Deacon Golden Black. How about that? Miami hasn't left the state of Florida, guys. They're like 30-point favorites against Stanford, a Stanford team that just beat Florida State out west. But of course, the story here is that Miami is off the loss to Louisville. They have not left the state of Florida yet this season. They do not until they make that road trip to Dallas, I believe in two weeks' time, something like that.
It's November 1st. Yeah, it's next week.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like November 1st is next week, but fellas, November 1st is next week.
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
So how we allowed a team to stay in literally their own state of residence until November 1st, I don't know. We've got to investigate that. Louisville, 25.5-point favorites versus Boston College. UVA, 10.5-point favorites over North Carolina. North Carolina team that played a little bit better at Cal. We'll see if UVA can withstand the fighting Bill Belichick's. All right. Those are the Power Four conferences. Now, gentlemen, I promised you the G5 standings in 60 seconds or less. I will preface with the American being basically USF, Memphis, and UNT. We get Memphis and USF this week, but the reason we didn't break down that game in full detail, it was a candidate for our sleeper game of the week. We don't know the status of Brendan Lewis. He limped off in their shocking loss in the Battle of Bones to UAB with a leg injury. The question of whether or not it will be Arrington Maiden, whether it will be the true freshman, or whether it will be Brendan Lewis at quarterback remains to be seen. We record these previews on a Monday night, so unfortunately we don't have an answer for you there. But with the American aside, the G5 standings in 60-ish seconds. Let's start in the MAC. Buffalo, 3-0 versus Akron this week. They're at the top of the conference. You've got Miami of Ohio and Western Michigan also at 3-0. All three of these teams control their destiny. And oh, wouldn't you look at that? The Red Hawks and the Broncos of Kalamazoo play each other this week. Miami of Ohio, 2.5-point favorites versus Western Michigan. Guys, I'm going to ride with the Broncos here. I believe in what they've got going on in Kalamazoo. It's a fun offense. The defense has been plucky as well. Give me Western Michigan in that one. To the Sun Belt, kind of boring. The top three teams in the East all have buys. That stinks. But the West is playing this week. You've also got App State and Old Dominion playing an elimination game this week. Old Dominion's offense, after blowing everybody away in non-conference play and looking like Ricky Ronnie's figured it out, hey, maybe the fellas in Norfolk are going to be dangerous this year. It's kind of slowed down. They got boxed by James Madison last week. A little bit disappointed in Old Dominion, but I think they bounce back this week. I'm going to take them over Appalachian State. App State eliminated from Sunbelt contention. Southern Miss in the West. Trey, your team, 3-0 in conference play. They host ULM. I like them to continue winning under Charles Huff. Troy is 3-0 in conference. They're playing a bad Louisiana team this week. I like Troy and the Fighting Jared Parkers to keep rolling as well. And then Arkansas State, a team that we were all high on in the Sunbelt preview, a team that we thought the offense was going to be great under Jalen Rayner. They've got some fun pieces out wide. Yeah, their offense hasn't really done anything in conference play right now. They're hosting Georgia Southern. They're 2-1. I like them to beat the Eagles. Georgia Southern just hasn't really been all that impressive this season. So the Red Wolves under Butch Jones, they stay alive for another week. Mountain West, very quickly, second place. San Diego State's 2-0 in conference. They're 5-1 overall. They host Fresno State, who's 2-1 in conference. Their one loss in conference was a blip on the radar. They got blown out in Fort Collins at Colorado State. I think Fresno State keeps it close, but shout out Sean Lewis. He's got the people vibing in Snapdragon Stadium. So give me the Aztecs to win that game. And then one of the most fun games on the slate, New Mexico hosting Utah State. Utah State 2-1 in conference. New Mexico 1-2. The Lobos, though, are favored by 2.5. I wonder what Vegas knows. Give me the home team in this one. I'll take New Mexico to send Utah State to 2-2 in conference play. Those are your G5 standings and headlines.
Mitch, I got 141 Mississippis on that one, so that's
okay. Well,
you got close. You got close.
There was a lot to cover.
That's a lot of G5.
Yeah,
I thought the 60 seconds was bold, and again, I only got Mississippis. I didn't count in seconds or anything.
60-ish with an asterisk.
I think this episode will be out by the time this game is over. I think it's a Tuesday night game, but Southern Miss and or not Southern Miss, La Tech and Western Kentucky face off this week.
Conference
in
USA.
Conference USA. I think that's a Tuesday night one though, so you guys will already know the results of that one.
And that was pretty much that was why I didn't include Conference USA in this, because half their games are done by the time this episode comes out. So yeah, let us know if you watched along with us on Tuesday, Wednesday night, because weeknight Conference USA has certainly been really, really entertaining. Fellas, we are at an hour 22. I think that's a good place to wrap. Gentlemen, appreciate you guys as always. I'm excited about week 9. Again, the little numbers next to team names might not be as bountiful as previous weeks, but you know there are going to be landmines that get stepped on. You know we're going to have graphics to put out on Saturday when inevitably a 20-point underdog wins outright. We can't wait for it. We know you guys can't as well. Appreciate you, the Jimmies and the Joes, rolling with us, hanging out with us tonight on YouTube, wherever you might be. Hit like, hit subscribe. Let us know your thoughts as well. For Trey Reeves and Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, so long, everybody.